Hello everyone, my name is Kay Chamberlain and welcome to my channel where I talk about comic books. This week we are continuing our deep dive through all of the Friday the 13th comics with the Wildstorm published Friday the 13th miniseries consisting of 6 issues. It's written by Jimmy Palmiotti and Justin Gray with art by Adam Archer and Peter Guzman. After Avatar Comics lost the license to Friday the 13th once they published the Fear Book one-shot, DC snapped up the license and decided to publish more Friday the 13th comics with their Wildstorm print, the first one being this Friday the 13th series. It follows a character named Sally Thomas as she recollects her time at Camp Crystal Lake and her encounter with Jason Voorhees. So without further ado, let's not waste any time and get straight into Friday the 13th, issue 1. Story begins with a caravan driving down a road as Sally Thomas, who is in an awful condition right now. She's missing teeth, she's missing a couple of fingers, she's being chased by Jason Voorhees. She collapses onto the road, Jason right behind her, and the man driving the caravan, whose name is Richard, sees Sally and quickly stops the caravan. He's like, oh shit! He stops it right in front of her, barely grazing her. His wife Martha is like, oh Richard, what the hell was happening? And he's like, there's a girl on the road, like we gotta grab her, she doesn't look like she's in great condition. So they bring her onto the caravan, and Martha looks out the window of the caravan and says that there is someone outside and that he needs to drive now. So they floor it down the road and they take Sally to a nearby hospital where she starts freaking out because she's suffering from PTSD, and the doctors are trying to stabilize her by using sedatives, but she's moving around so much that they keep breaking the needle. That's when the local sheriff comes by. He's talking to the doctor and he says that she is the lone survivor of an attack at Camp Blood, which obviously isn't the first one. This is the next attack from Jason Voorhees, and this sheriff is like, we gotta shut down that camp because this just keeps happening. At first I didn't believe in this death curse that everyone was talking about, but now I think I might be. We cut to 2 weeks earlier. 2 friends, Jerry and Nate, are heading to Camp Crystal Lake. They stop by a nearby diner because they have no way of getting there, so they want to try and get a lift. They head in there, they ask everyone about whether or not they can get a lift to Camp Crystal Lake, and everybody in the diner just looks at them and completely ignores them because they know about Jason Voorhees. Nobody wants to go down there. Jerry and Nate take this the wrong way and are just like, man, why is everybody in here such an asshole? I guess we're walking. They come across a guy who looks like a bit of a druggie, and the guy just laughs in their face maniacally and motions a throat slit at them, basically saying, you're gonna die. Like, this guy knows about Jason Voorhees in Camp Crystal Lake. I don't know why nobody warns them about it. I'm assuming that that diner has seen so many people like these guys come in that they just don't care anymore. Because it doesn't matter if they warn them. They probably wouldn't have believed them anyway. And then we get some amazing dialogue between Nate and Jerry. We're going to be seeing a lot of dialogue like this throughout this book because it does the stereotypical weedhead teenagers trope that you see a lot in these movies, especially the 2009 reboot. I think the characters in this are very similar to those characters. All I know is there better be some hot pussy at this camp. Whisker biscuits, fish mittens. Fish mittens? A bushy Elizabeth? A what? How about axe wound? That's sick. Like, what is this dialogue? Definitely feels like older men writing young men, being like, oh, this is how the kids talk these days, right? You know? Fish mittens? We get introduced to some more characters who are all heading to Camp Crystal Lake. We got Ryan, his girlfriend Sasha, their friend Brian, or at least maybe he's their friend. They seem to not like him. He's a bit of a nerd, like, especially when it comes to Camp Crystal Lake and the history of Jason Voorhees. He knows a lot about that stuff. He's done his research. He is this book's version of Randy Meeks, the character in Scream who knew everything about horror movies. That's what this guy is. And then we got Sally Thomas. She's looking in a much better condition at this point. They arrive at Camp Crystal Lake and we are introduced to this man named Mr. Gaines. He's hired these teenagers to come to Camp Crystal Lake to fix it up and make it look all nice and clean, because he plans on reopening the camp. And Brian points out that why would kids want to come to Camp Crystal Lake knowing its history? And Mr. Gaines is like, that's what we're doing. We're doing that on purpose. Everybody knows the history of Camp Crystal Lake, and we are going to market that. This is the place that you come to get the shit scared out of you by Jason Voorhees. And every kid is going to be going home scared to death. And we're going to make a lot of money off of it. He shows that he's got some shirts that say, I survived Camp Blood. We are also introduced to the rest of the characters. We've got Rico and Ashley. And then we are introduced to another character named Mike Burns. And he has been ordered by Mr. Gaines to watch over the teenagers and make sure that they're doing their job. If you've watched my previous Friday the 13th videos, this intro would feel very familiar to you because it's almost one-to-one exactly the same as the premise of Bloodbath, where in that series, the teenagers were all hired by this guy to help clean up Camp Crystal Lake so that it could be reopened, but what they didn't know was that they were actually being hired as a trap for Jason Voorhees. So while Jason was killing them, this organization would capture Jason and take him in and experiment on him. I don't know if that's what's going to happen in this, but if it does, then I would probably ask the writers, hey, did you just straight up copy that other book, or is this purely coincidental? It just feels like a very similar premise, but I guess it's an easy premise to come up with for a Friday the 13th book and not realize that it's already been done. It's only so many ways where you can try and justify some characters coming to this camp fully knowing that there is a psychopath here. The teens all decide to head to the lake to go for a swim and to chill and relax, and Mike shows interest in Sally. He even says, yeah, that's right, baby, you're the summer catch. You just don't know it yet. Like he's saying, like, yeah, I'm gonna come on to you. What you gonna do about it? They start chilling at the dock where they get to know each other a little bit. Apparently Ashley and Rico had to leave LA for reasons that Rico doesn't want to elaborate on, but he says that they had to deal with violence in their hometown, so Jason Voorhees wouldn't be that much of a different experience for them, is what they say. That's when Brian starts talking about the history of Camp Crystal Lake. Something interesting is that we learn that there have been deaths at Crystal Lake even before Jason Voorhees died. You know, apparently during the 30s, there was a building that burned down that 5 people died in. He talks about how Alice Hardy, the protagonist of the first Friday the 13th, was killed by Pamela Voorhees as well. So we go through this whole history. Jason died in 57, and then in 1962, Brian notes that the camp was almost open again, but the water was bad. Nobody died, but they found a bunch of animals, deer, squirrels, bears, you name it. They were just lying dead in the woods. The groundwater was toxic for a summer, then mysteriously cleared itself up. So a lot of weird things are happening, or have been happening, at Camp Crystal Lake over the years. Mike decides that he's had enough talking about ghost stories and wants to head off, and they're all like, oh, you're just gonna leave us here then? He's like, yeah, I'll leave you here. I'm not really interested in you, but I am interested in your friend Sally. Is she seeing anybody? And Sasha says that she's not interested in him. And Mike's like, you don't even know me. Like, you have a dick. That's all I need to know. So I think that's Sasha confirming that Sally is gay, I think. Which is cool. Pretty sure that's what she's inferring. Rico and Ashley head off to make out and probably have sex after, and it's here that we get to know them a little bit better. Rico plans on making some money at this camp so that they can move to New York and live with his brother. Seems like right now they're kind of on the run, they're on the road trying to start a new life together. And it's even mentioned that Ashley's father was probably abusive to her, because she says, like, what if my pop finds out? He's gonna be so angry, he's gonna come after us. And Rico's like, you don't have to worry about him anyway. He's miles away and can't hurt you. No one can, as long as I'm around. While Sally's having a swim in the lake, she suddenly feels something and gets yanked under the water, and she's like, help! Mike's just like, very funny. We're not falling for it, Sally. Sally is underwater, and they realize that she hasn't come up in a while, and we see that a dead body or a zombie has grabbed onto her leg and is pulling her down. At first you think it's probably Jason Voorhees, but it's actually a ton of dead bodies. And I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be all of the victims of Camp Crystal Lake. Not just Jason's victims, but Pamela's victims and the people that died in the fires. I'm assuming it's supposed to be them. It's not known if this is actually happening. It's probably just a hallucination happening to Sally. But yeah, it's pretty freaky. A very freaky page of all of these corpses yanking on Sally and pulling her underwater. She falls unconscious. Mike quickly grabs her and brings her to the surface. They try to bring her to consciousness. Like, come on, breathe, damn it. Sally? Oh my god. She's dead. And so they can't resuscitate her in time. We're left on this cliffhanger of, is Sally dead? Did she just drown? While the others attempt to resuscitate her, Sally has a horrible dream of being attacked by Jason Voorhees, but they manage to resuscitate her. Sally says that she was just having some crazy dreams about these kids that grabbed her underwater, but that she should be fine, and they suggest taking her to the hospital because maybe she's got brain damage, or at least that's what Brian suggests, and Sasha's just like, shut up, Brian. And Mike's upset because he truly thought that he'd lost Sally there for a moment. And obviously he's interested in her, so if she was dead, that would suck for him. Alicia and Rico have sex, and while they're having sex, and Alicia is saying his name, she looks through a window and screams because Jerry and Nate are watching them through the window like creeps. So this is where it becomes apparent that most of these characters really suck. Jerry and Nate being some of the worst. Honestly, I can't decide which characters I hate most. It's probably Sasha and Ryan. You'll see in a moment why I don't like those characters, even compared to these two creeps. Dude, haha, that kicked ass. Shit, Nate, I think I pissed myself. Speaking of pissed, Rico doesn't look too happy. Rico chases after them, and eventually they bump into all the other characters, and Mick's just like, whoa, calm down, guys, what's going on? Rico's like, they were watching me and my girlfriend have sex. And Nate and Jerry are just like, hey, there's no problem here, like, it's just a joke, like, we were just having fun, that's all. I'd say out of all these characters, the only ones I don't hate are Rico, Alicia, Mike, Sally, and that's it. At first, I didn't hate Brian, but something happens later that made me not like him either. Mike tells Rico to put some clothes on because he's scaring the girls, and Sasha's like, I'm not scared. And then Ryan just comes up to Sasha and is like, that's enough out of you, Sasha. And she's like, what did I do? And it's like, yeah, what did she do, Ryan? Why are you being such an asshole? Mike heads off with Sally. The two of them have a conversation where Mike says that he's sorry for coming on to her. He didn't know she was gay. And Sally's like, what are you talking about? I'm not gay. He's like, yeah, but Sasha said... Oh, Sasha, right. She's very overprotective of me. I think she just said that so that you would stop coming on to me. The truth is, I got broken up by a boyfriend of 5 years, and so I'm not in a place to move on into a new relationship. Mike's like, I fully understand. I'll stop coming on to you then. I'll only do it if you ask me to. And Sally's like, that's probably for the best. It's like, if you need anything, I will be here. Alright, so just let me know, I'll help you. So she thanks Mike and she heads off on her own, and Mike just kind of stands there in the middle of the woods watching her as she leaves. It's a little creepy, I don't know. I don't know, like the way it's drawn here, it's like ominous for some reason. That's the feeling I get from this panel. Brian, Ryan, and Sasha get to know Jerry and Nate a little bit more, where Jerry and Nate say that they're working at the camp so that they can get money, so that they can then go on the road and start their own band. And they're like, what? A band? What kind of music are you going to be playing? And Jerry says that they're going to be playing ghetto tech. And they're like, oh, what's ghetto tech? And Brian explains what ghetto tech is because he knows everything. Ghetto tech is electronic dance music that started in Detroit back in '94. It's a mashup of Chicago's ghetto house with electro hip-hop techno and the raunch of Miami bass, or booty bass, as it's more popularly known. It's faster than most dance music genres at roughly 145 to 170 BPM and pretty much features porno lyrics. And at that point, you're like, oh, then it makes sense that these two creeps are picking that kind of music to make because they're peeping toms and all they do is just talk about fucking women and pussy and shit like that. And then Sasha just tells them to shut up and is like, you really are a Google humping brain freak. Why are you here when you could be playing Xbox with your online... Don't want to say that word because it's a nasty word. These characters say the R word a lot. They say a lot of slurs that I personally do not want to repeat. You know, it really helps to endear the characters. You know, you really care about these characters because of all these slurs that they just keep throwing out and all these insults that they keep throwing at each other, you know? That's what I want from a horror comic or a horror movie, is characters that I don't like. Ryan literally throws a book at Brian and is like, hey, I've had enough of you two fighting. That's enough, like, I don't want you fighting this whole time. Anyway, let's have a drinking game. Let's see who can drink the most until they puke. And Sasha's like, I'm not interested in this. I'm leaving. And Ryan's like, come on, babe, stay. Play with us. He's like, no, I'm gonna go check on Sally. And so she leaves. She heads outside, hears a noise, and is like, whoa, anyone there? Rabbits. Only rabbits. She heads down to the lake. She looks out across the lake and sees the body of a child hovering over the lake. She's like, what? And then she sees more children rise from the lake. These corpses all floating. Holy shit. Holy shit, holy shit, holy shit, motherfucking holy shit. And she runs all the way back to the cab and is like, guys, I just saw a bunch of creepy children and all their corpses floating over the lake. And they're all just like, yeah, you probably saw something, but we've also been drinking. But let's just go out to the lake and see what you're talking about anyway. So they head down to the lake because she's serious that what she saw was real. And when they head down there, there's nothing there. Ryan's like, I believe that you saw something, but we were drinking, so it could have been anything. Brian, Sasha, and Ryan all decide to head off while Jerry and Nate decide to stay behind on the dock because Jerry wants to talk to Jesus, because he says that that's probably who Sasha saw, was Jesus floating over the lake, and he wants to talk to him and have a conversation. Meanwhile, Sally is drawing in a book or something. She closes it, she goes into the bathroom, she checks her face, she washes her face. Her eyes are like a little bit bruised, I guess, from almost drowning. And while she's washing her face, Brian appears behind her, creepily watching her as she's washing her face. And then once she's done, he's gone. And so that's why I don't like Brian, because at first he was just this guy who knew a lot about stuff and was being bullied by everybody else. But now he's clearly a creep. Sally sits on her bed and opens up her book again, but then throws it in a fit of rage and begins like tugging at her hair because she's freaking out after what she saw. Nate and Jerry smoke blunts on the dock, and they have the most emotional conversation ever conceived in a comic book. That Sasha chick's pretty hot. Yeah, not only does she have a boyfriend, but she's a raging bitch. I feel sorry for that Ryan dude. She's got him whipped, dipped, and tight-lipped. Great tits though, you gotta admit, she's got military nipples. So I noticed. You can hang a winter coat off those puppies. Drowning Girl seems like she's got baggage. He didn't even talk to her. I got Raider for that shit. It's like Gator, but for chicks with enough personal problems to fill Paris Hilton's luggage. What you got is Radar for chicks that don't like you, which is most. That Alicia chick is slammin'. Agreed. There's no competing with Rico's killer trouser snake. He should be one of the Bang Brothers. Pass me a beer. You know, man, I was thinking. Yeah, you were thinking about Rico's meaty schlong. Ha, fucking ha. Seriously, I was thinking about how, you know, when you're a little kid and every day is crazy exciting. You go to bed at night and you can't wait for the next day. I'm still like that. No, I mean that crazy excitement where every day is a new adventure and the littlest shit is so cool. Dude, you're so fucking gay right now. And then Jason comes plunging out of the water behind them, holding a fork and a knife. He stabs Nate through the face with the fork and Jerry through the face with the knife, then yanks them both out, causing blood and the viscera to go everywhere. And then he grabs their bodies by the mouth and pulls them into the lake, dragging their bodies through the lake. Ending such a wholesome conversation between these two characters that I loved, and, you know, I totally hated the fact that they died and wasn't cheering when this happened. No, seriously though, these two characters were the worst. I'm glad they're dead, and that was one of the worst conversations that I've ever read in a comic book. I think the writers really outdid it. I would assume that they were trying to make it as bad as possible so that when these two characters died, you were happy. I'm hoping that they didn't think that this conversation was some kind of groundbreaking genius or something. Like, they were really hitting that feeling, making it emotional and deep. Also, one of them's wearing a shirt that says, "I ship money," which is pretty funny. It's like a funny visual gag. The next morning, Mike heads over to Jerry and Nate's room in order to wake them up, but when he opens the door, he finds that they're not there, and he assumes, for some reason, that they must have left the camp. They don't even think to check down at the docks where they last saw Jerry and Nate. They just assume that they've gone. So he gets the teens together and he says to not worry about them, and he gives them different jobs to do. He gives the boys, he tells them to like go up on top of the roof and fix it, and he tells Sasha and Alicia to paint the insides of the cabins, while he and Sally go off in search for Jerry and Nate, because they believe that the two of them have probably gone to a bus stop nearby, so they'll be able to catch up with them. Even though a lot of time has passed in between when they last saw Jerry and Nate and now. It's been all night. Why would they still be waiting at a bus stop? While driving to the bus stop, Sally finds a book in Mike's truck all about serial killers. And she's like, wow, this sucks. I'm stuck in a car with a serial killer. Try and convince me not to roll out of here. And Mike's like, I only have that because I'm interested in it because of all the stories that go on. There's an entire section about Jason Voorhees. I don't believe that Jason Voorhees is a real thing, that he's still alive and he's out there killing people. But the story still got me interested enough to buy this book and read it. Sally sees a fox walk in front of their truck, so Mike quickly stops the truck, and that's when Sally looks down. She goes to put on her seatbelt and finds Jason Voorhees' mask in his truck. She's like, Mike, what the hell is this? Why you got this mask? And Mike's like, whoa, not what it looks like. Mr. Gaines wanted to open up a gift shop, and this is one of the things that he planned to sell in it, these Jason Voorhees masks. He gave me one, I threw it in my truck, didn't even think about it, completely forgot I had it. Must have slid under the seat. That's all it is, I promise. I'm not Jason Voorhees. Or at least I'm not pretending to be him. Because Sally brings up the idea that she believes that Jason Voorhees did die, because they've there's been multiple accounts that he has come back as a zombie or come back to life and has been killed multiple times by different people, but then keeps coming back. And Sally says that it's probably just copycat killers pretending to be him. And so that's why finding this mask in Mike's truck is worrying to her, because she thinks that Mike might be a copycat killer. Ryan, Rico, and Brian all get to work on the roof, and their conversation goes from being about Sally, where Rico tells Brian to get over Sally, because even though she's not interested in Mike yet, she's also not interested in him, and so he should just give up. And this causes an argument between the two of them, where Brian is trying to get Ryan on his side because Ryan's supposed to be his friend, and then Rico gives Brian some pretty shitty advice on how to pick up women, basically telling Brian to be the exact opposite of who he is, which is some terrible advice to give somebody, where he's like, just change everything about your opinion and your personality, and you'll pick up a woman. And this pisses Brian off. He's like, fuck you. He's like, what's that? Say it again louder so I can make sure I heard you right. Fuck you! I'm sick to death of fucking assholes like you putting me down. You may have a huge dick, but I'm smarter, better educated, and going further in life than you could ever fucking hope to do. You're going real far when I throw your skinny ass off the roof. Go ahead, do it, I don't fucking care. I will. You'll feel like a real man when you beat up a dude half your size. Hey, come on guys, just leave him alone, Rico. And then he goes to touch Rico, and Rico just pushes Ryan like an asshole. Ryan almost falls off the roof. He like grabs onto it and he's like, hey bro, can you help me? Rico kind of hesitates and he's like, are you fucking crazy? Help me. You're an asshole. I could have died. Gotta be careful, man. There's no doctor around. Asshole. It's your lucky day. Looks like this argument is rained out. And then Ryan's like, oh no it isn't. And he punches Rico in the face. And so Rico grabs him and Brian. Ryan's just like, get off of me. You're fucking dead. Come on, you're gonna... And all three of them fall off the roof straight into a hay pile below. And Rico tells Ryan to get off of him. And Ryan's like, no, like, you're gonna take a beating because of the way that you're treating the both of us. Spent 7 years training in mixed martial arts. And he just knees Rico in the stomach and pins him to the ground. And is basically like, we good? He's like, yeah, man, we're good. And Brian thanks Ryan as he and Ryan head off, and Ryan's like, hey, no problem. He's crazy, angry, and has issues. That's a bad combination. Stay away from him from now on. Alicia and Sasha head back to the cabins where they find Ryan and Brian. And they're like, whoa, what happened with you guys? And Ryan's like, Riku and Brian got into a fight. We all fell off the roof. And I took care of Rico using my martial arts. Maybe you should talk to him, Alicia. Your boyfriend's got anger issues. Alicia's like, whatever. I'll go talk to Rico. Sasha wants to go get a shower. Ryan says that he's gonna join her, but she's like, no thank you. I just want to shower by myself for once. And so Ryan and Brian are left alone in the cabin together. Mike's truck breaks down in the middle of the rainstorm, and so he decides to head out in order to fix the tire while Sally waits in the truck. And that's when Jason appears outside, which makes you wonder, how did he get here? How far away from the camp are they? Because you could assume that they're driving back to the camp and they're basically there. And that Jason was just waiting for them. But what if they weren't right there and we're supposed to assume that Jason just found them? Either way, he finds them and Mike has got a hold of the tire and Sally's like pointing behind him like, holy... Mike turns around and Jason just whacks him over the face with a tire iron, taking a chunk out of his jaw. Mike's just kind of like, ugh. As he falls down onto the ground, Jason slams him on the back of the neck with a tire iron, damaging his spine. Sally runs away while Jason drags Mike over to the car. He places Mike's head under the car and then puts his foot on the jack, causing the car to fall on top of Mike's head, crushing it and killing him. That's right, you thought Mike was going to be the final guy of this book, that he's the secondary protagonist? Well, he's not, because he's dead. Third character to die in the book, It was quite shocking, I wasn't expecting this. But the twists don't stop there. Sally runs back to Camp Crystal Lake, so it's assumed that they were parked right outside it. I don't even know why Mike was even bothering to fix the tire if they were right there anyway. They could have just went into the camp. Whatever. He comes across Sasha and tells her that Mike is dead and that it's because of Jason Voorhees. He's here and he's gonna kill them. So her and Sasha head back into the cabin, and that's when they find Brian and Ryan making out, because another plot twist is that Brian and Ryan are gay, and that they've, I guess, revealed their feelings for each other now. Straight up giving each other tongue. And they're caught in the act, so it's pretty damn awkward. And Ryan's like, we're gonna have to talk about this, Sasha. And Sasha's like, I'm out of here. I don't care about the fact that you're gay. Mike is dead, murdered, and I don't even know what I'm doing here. He's like, Mike is dead? Keys, give me the keys. Jason killed him. Who the hell was Jason? Jason Voorhees. Everyone has gone insane. You're all insane. I'm not staying here another minute. Sally goes to leave the cabin, and she sees Jason standing right outside. She's like, oh god, he's here. And it really just brings up that point I made earlier, where they could have just gone down to the docks, seen Jerry and Nate's blood on the docks, and put two and two together and thought, oh, they've probably been murdered. And if they'd have done that, then Sally and Mike would have never gone out searching for them. Mike never would have died. Sally tells the others that she can see Jason Voorhees, that he's standing right outside their cabin, but when Sasha and Ryan go to look, they can't see anyone. So they're thinking Sally might be going crazy and that maybe she should be on her meds. At the moment, Ryan is still dealing with the whole situation between him, Brian, and Sasha, and Sally tells him that he needs to put that aside and think about it later. Like, she's like, I know you're bisexual and all, but now's not the time to be talking about that. We gotta deal with the fact that there is a killer in the woods who is going to kill us. So we need to find your phone and call the police. And Ryan's like, finally, you're talking sense. My phone should be in the Jeep out back. So they go and they check the Jeep, and when Sally opens up the Jeep door, she finds the severed heads of Jerry and Nate, and kind of censors it for me a little bit by vomiting all over them, which is disgusting. Some of the grossest parts of this comic aren't even the deaths, and you'll see what I mean later when something really gross happens. Ryan continues checking the Jeep, searching for his phone, but he can't find it, and so they decide that they should go and find Rico and Alicia and take Rico's Jeep to get out of the woods instead. They regroup with Rico, Alicia, and Sasha, where they tell Rico about the severed heads. He checks the Jeep, and it freaks him out. So he's like, alright, we gotta get the hell out of here in my Jeep. So Rico tries to start up his Jeep, but he can't. Turns out the engine has been messed with, and so he suggests that they go walking instead. And Alicia's like, hey, I ain't walking out there. Like, there's all sorts of places that you could jump out and ambush us. The characters end up on two different sides, where Ryan believes that they need to hold themselves down in the cabin with weapons and try to fight Jason head on, wait until morning, where Sally says that waiting till morning is pointless because Jason kills people in the morning as well. Rico is on the side of leaving and getting out of here, but he's the only one who wants to do that. Everyone else sides with Ryan, and so he reluctantly goes along with it. They also suggest the possibility that Sally might be the one who's killing people, because she swears that she saw Mike get killed by Jason, but she was the only one there at the time, and she's also not on her meds at the moment, so they don't even know if they can believe her, because she might be seeing hallucinations and not even realize it. Ryan also wants to go grab Brian, but Rico consistently tells him not to go and find Brian and to leave him, because not only does Rico not like Brian, but also, if you go off on your own, you're almost guaranteed to die. The characters are all just being awful to each other again. Rico is referring to Ryan by different slurs and nicknames. Ryan is calling Sasha a fucking bitch, and she's saying that he makes her sick. Right now, it seems like the nicest characters in the book that aren't problematic are Alicia and Sally. They head to the shed to grab some tools to make into weapons, and Ryan says again that he needs to go and check on Brian. Rico tells him not to, and says that he can go find Brian, but don't complain when they lock him out of the cabin. And Ryan's just like, you'll let us in, or a crazed maniac in the woods will be the least of your problems. Just hurry, Nancy. And then Ryan just elbows him in the face, because, Rico deserves it. It's like, he hits pretty hard for a cocksmoker. Now, the more you read this, the more you realize that there's no way that the writers weren't homophobic, because the amount of homophobia that is just consistent throughout this book. This was, 2007 this came out? I feel like you would have to be homophobic to be writing this much homophobia into your book and its characters. It reeks of early to mid 2000s. Ryan runs back to the cabin. He sees a light on and assumes it's Brian, so he heads there and finds Brian sitting in the kitchen, where they have a little bit of an argument where apparently they've been seeing each other a lot longer than we've known. They've even had sex with each other, and Brian says that whenever they've had sex, Ryan can't even look at him. So it seems like they've got a very complicated relationship, even more complicated than we would have thought before. Ryan seems to be very dismissive of the relationship. He doesn't seem like he's fully committed to it. He refuses to even talk about it. He says that he cares about Brian, but Brian doesn't believe him. He's like, if you really cared about me, then you would stay here. And Brian grabs a knife, and you're thinking, man, what is this guy planning to do with the knife? Is he going to attack Ryan? Is he planning on offing himself? Rico and Alicia board up the cabin, and there's a moment where Alicia has to switch shirts because we need a reason for her to take off her shirt in this book. Sasha is also way too transfixed on the Brian and Ryan situation to the point where you're wondering, does she have a thing for that or something? Because she just won't shut up about it, about how much she hates it, but she's clearly obsessed with it too. Sally decides that she needs to leave to go grab her meds because she hasn't taken them in a while, and Rico tells her not to go and to stay, and that he'll offer her crystal meth as a substitute. So Rico is a drug addict? Like, what? These characters just keep going more and more downhill as we keep going, where it's revealed that one of them is now smoking crystal meth, and Alicia is very much against this, proving that she is still probably the best character in this book and the only reasonable one that exists, who isn't homophobic, who hates drugs. Sally decides to leave anyway, and Rico tells her that she's a dumbass and that they're not going to help her because they're too selfish to do so, which sucks. It sucks that they have to be like that, especially because they already agreed that they need to stick together in order to survive, and immediately they're not sticking together and are telling each other to screw themselves. Ryan continues to refuse to talk to Brian about their whole situation, so Brian tells him to leave, and Ryan's like, look, it's not safe out there by yourself, like, we gotta go. It's like, just leave. What the hell is wrong with you? Everything. And so Ryan leaves, and Brian just looks directly into the knife that he's holding. Sally searches her cabin for her meds. She goes into the bathroom. She finds the meds sitting on the bathroom side. Warning, something incredibly gross is about to happen. So if you don't like seeing really gross things that aren't violence related, I suggest you skip ahead a couple of seconds, like 10, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. She opens up the container, realizes that her meds are missing, and then she checks the toilet and sees that the meds are in the toilet and have been pissed on by somebody. And Sally needs to take her meds, so she starts pulling the medication out of the toilet covered in piss and begins taking her meds anyway. It's disgusting. It's probably the most disgusting thing that has happened in this. I was just like, ugh, what the hell? What am I reading? What is going on? This was not something I expected to happen in this book. And then things only get worse for her when Jason appears out of nowhere behind her, holding a knife. He goes to attack her, so she grabs the top of the toilet and smacks it at him. She gets slit on the wrist by his knife, but she hits him in the throat with the top of the toilet. He falls to his knees, and then she grabs it, smacks him over the head, and then he goes to grab the knife and he stabs her in the leg with it. It's like, I'll kill you! And she just repeatedly slams the top of the toilet over Jason's head until it cracks his head open. Blood comes spurting out everywhere, pouring all over the ground. She looks at Jason's body. We can see some exposed brain. And she kicks him over onto his front, pulls his hockey mask off, and what she sees freaks her out. She's like, oh my god. No. In the present day at the hospital, Sheriff begins talking to Sally about all the deaths that happened when she went on her trip to Camp Crystal Lake. He talks about Nate and Jerry, he talks about Mike, and then he begins talking about the other victims, and we get to see those victims play out as he's talking to Sally. So, the characters are all held up in the cabin together, and that's when Mr. Gaines arrives, the guy that owns the camp, the guy that told them to work on it, to fix it up and everything. So he enters, and that's when they all tell him that they need to get out of here because somebody is murdering them all. He doesn't quite believe them at first, but they show him Jerry and Nate's heads, and so immediately he's on board. And he's like, alright, we gotta get out of here, my car's just over there, so get in there, let's get the hell out of here. He goes to check his car and sees that the tires have all been burst. It's like, okay, which one of you did this? It's not funny. My tires were fine when I got here. He tells Ryan to go get Rico so that he can get some new tires, and as he says that, an arrow goes straight through his neck, and he falls straight to the ground dead. So Mr. Gaines is now dead. Back in the present, the sheriff tells Sally that she's currently on meds in the hospital, and that the medication that she takes specifically for bipolar and depression, which is a very important thing to note. Ryan runs back to the cabin, boards up the doors, tells everyone that Mr. Gaines has just died, and now they believe that either Sally or Brian are the killers, because they still don't believe that Jason Voorhees is a thing. So they're like, it's either Sally or Brian. And Sasha's like, well, Sally's mental, but she would never kill anyone, so it has to be Brian. But Ryan obviously is protecting Brian because he cares about him. But what they don't know is that Sally fought Jason in the bathroom, except it wasn't Jason Voorhees. It's revealed that the person she killed in the bathroom was Brian. And the sheriff tries to make her feel bad about it, even though it's clear that Brian tried to kill her in the bathroom, so she was just protecting herself and did murder him, but it was out of self-defense. Either way, this causes her to have a complete mental breakdown once she realizes what she's done. He then mentions that 6 months prior to arriving at the camp, she was in a deadly car accident with her previous boyfriend, Ben Cale. It was mentioned earlier that she had a boyfriend, but now we're finally learning what happened to him. Sally sees all the blood on her clothes and rips her clothes off, causing her to fall over. She hits her head on the bathroom side, knocking her out. And Jason shows up, runs his fingers through her hair, and picks up her body, then carries her out of the bathroom. So things are starting to get real weird here. Like, why is Jason caressing her like this? Is he a hallucination? Is he a separate personality of hers that she has been seeing this entire time? Is she the one that's been doing all the killing, but the artist has just drawn her as Jason to trick the reader? We don't know yet, but we're gonna find out. The last remaining characters continue to wait in the cabin. They decide that they're not even gonna go out and find Sally, they're just gonna assume she's already dead. They're gonna stay in the cabin where it's safe. Sasha opens up a nearby window, she opens the curtains up, and Jason is right outside. he smashes the window with his machete and cuts Sasha's head in half with the machete. Just goes straight through her head, splitting it open. It's disgusting. Ryan's just like, oh, fuck! And then Jason grabs her shirt and pulls her body through the window. And they're all just like, whoa, what the hell? Okay, I can't take this. I guess we're still gonna stay together in the cabin. Just stay away from the windows from now on. In the present, the sheriff notes that Sally only sustained minor injuries from the car accident that her boyfriend died in, because she was wearing a seatbelt and he wasn't. And that it was also the same night that he broke up with her. Given your condition, I can imagine you were very upset with him. Perhaps even upset enough to have caused the accident that killed your ex-boyfriend. And Sally looks at him almost as if he's telling the truth. He's saying exactly what happened. Sally wakes up on a bed, naked and covered in blood. She looks to her left to see the dead bodies of Brian and Sasha, which is a horrifying thing to wake up to. So she runs screaming out of the cabin into the rain. Meanwhile, Ryan, Alicia, and Rico are all huddled together in the cabin, and Alicia points out, or Rico points out, that the window's smashed. So they're like, why are we even huddled in here when he could just come straight through the window if he wants to get us? And Alicia starts pushing the bookcase out of the way of the door so that they can leave. She's like, I'm not staying here to die. And Ryan's like, yeah, but Alicia's right. I think we're going to have to leave the cabin and attack Jason head on. You know, maybe he's not all that big of a guy. Maybe if we all take him on, he won't know what to do. Maybe he's a big pussy that gets off at, and then his head just gets cut off by a swinging machete. His head goes flying and lands in Rico's hands. And Rico's just like, oh, shit, and just throws his head onto the ground next to his body. And that's when Jason is right in front of them. It's like, you aren't real. And so he swipes at Alicia barely dodging him, and she and Rico run off away from Jason. Sally appears and just stares at Ryan's body. Rico and Alicia run through the forest. Alicia trips over and Rico goes back to help her, and when he turns around, he sees Sally standing there and is just like, what the fuck? Like, what is she doing? Why is she just standing there all weird and ominously? She's also still naked at this point, so it's just real bizarre. It's like she's completely out of it. It's like she's not Sally right now. Jason appears behind Sally, and instead of attacking her, passes her his machete. So now things are getting even crazier, because she has his machete, and Jason isn't harming her. So what is going on? In the 1900s, it was believed that many of the Native Americans died from diseases brought in by the white settlers. However, in this book, in their history, not all of them died from diseases. And the diseases was used as cover-up for the white settlers just killing the Native Americans out of pure racism. They knew that the Native Americans were led by a shaman, so they decided to hold the shaman ransom and kill him in front of all the other Native Americans to show that they have the power. So they grab the shaman, they hold a knife to his neck, they slice his neck open, and the shaman bleeds continuously out into the lake of Camp Crystal Lake. It's crazy, it's really gross, all this blood. They mention how the blood seems to never stop flowing. The shaman mentions that, unlike his people, he can never die. He is immortal. So the idea is that his blood flowing into the lake is the curse that has been placed on Crystal Lake, and that throughout the years, the spirit of the shaman has been possessing people and causing horrible things to happen as revenge for what had happened to his people. One of the vessels that his spirit possessed was Jason Voorhees, and he used Jason to go on a massive killing spree. So this is the explanation as to why Jason is the embodiment of pure evil. He isn't just killing people because his mother died. He's killing people because he is possessed by the spirit of a wrathful shaman, trying to get revenge for the death of his people. So he's used Jason's anger towards his mother to go after all these teenagers and kill them. We get shots of all these different characters that have died across the franchise. And now he's come to Sally, presumably so that he can possess Sally and the curse can go on through her. But Sally doesn't give in to this and instead decides to attack Jason with his own machete, hitting him in the neck with the machete, and then she runs away, leaving this machete jutting out of Jason's neck. Rico and Ashley find Mike's dead body and his truck and realize that the truck is still on, so Rico decides to move the body while Ashley tries to fix the car by giving a new wheel. But as they are doing this, Jason appears, he grabs Alicia, he pulls her into the air by her neck, she screams for help from Rico, she's like, "Rico, help me!" And Jason guts her, he just stabs her in the stomach, her guts just start spilling out everywhere, it's disgusting. Rico tries to help her, he's like, "You motherfucker!" And then he just gets stabbed through the gut by Jason as well, his guts also pouring out, and he crawls over to Alicia as he dies and holds her in his arms, and according to the sheriff, they were both found later having passed away, and their intestines were completely gone because animals had been eating their corpses. Just disgusting. Luckily, we don't have to see that part. The sheriff believes that Sally did all this. He doesn't believe in Jason Voorhees. He's like, let's just cut the bullshit with the whole Jason routine. You can blame your medication. You can blame your parents. You know, even the president of the United States if you like. But at the end of the day, you're just another crazy, psychotic bitch. Come on, wake up so we can save some taxpayer. And then a shadow looms over them. The sheriff turns around and is like, what in God's name? And sees Jason Voorhees covered in blood standing at the doorway to the room. Drop the weapon! Sheriff pulls out his gun, points it at Jason. I mean it! Drop the goddamn sword or I'll shoot! Do it now! And he just blasts Jason to hell. Jason falls to the ground and the sheriff believes that he's killed him. I don't believe it. Did you see? Hey, where are you going? It's okay, he's dead. Hang on, Sally. There's no danger. Sally just rushes past him out of the room. It's like, stop, I'm sorry. He's dead. And then Jason just wakes up, cuts the sheriff's hand off. The sheriff's just like, ah, as his blood is going everywhere. Then Jason just grabs him by the neck, pulls him up into the air, and then smashes his head through the roof, and then looks at his head hanging from the roof. And then Jason just punches him in the neck, causing his head to rip from his body. It's insane. And I love that it's just Jason kind of being really petty, where he's like, oh yeah, you're gonna shoot me? Well, take that. And like punches him like a punching bag. Sally runs to the entrance where she finds the bodies of all the nurses littering the hospital. Jason has just ravaged this entire hospital. Leaves the hospital. It turns out she has the sheriff's key, so she tries to open up his car door so she can get in and get away, but Jason appears behind her and he grabs her and pulls her away and starts carrying her away, and she's like, fucking let me go, ah! And she screams as she's pulled away into the woods. 6 weeks later, at Camp Blood, a man named Mr. Beckett shows up to meet with this woman named Miss Sates. Turns out he's bought Crystal Lake, and she asks him if he plans on opening up Camp Blood again. And he's like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna tear this whole place down. I'm gonna build a whole resort here with spas and all sorts of stuff. It's gonna be great. They head over to the dock just to look out at the beautiful lake. They're like, oh, look at this lake. It's so beautiful. It's the perfect location. And as they stare into the lake, they see Sally's decomposing body in the lake. So it's confirmed that Jason did kill Sally, unfortunately. He's missing an arm, so either it decomposed or he cut it off. Oh, how horrible. It's like, I'll call the police. My cell is back in the car. Mr. Beckett grabs his cell, he can't get any signal, and as he's trying to get signal, an arrow goes straight through his eye. He's like, ah, my eye! It's like, oh shit, don't touch it, Mr. Beckett. I'll get you to her. And then another arrow goes straight through his head, killing him. And so Mrs. Safes is just like, ah! Oh god! And then Jason appears behind her and machetes her in the head. Just goes straight through her head, cutting it in half. He then grabs their bodies and pulls them into the lake. And that's where it ends. The end. Nobody is allowed to own Crystal Lake except for Jason Voorhees. This series was a real wild ride. It started off as a very stereotypical Friday the 13th book, beginning exactly the same as the other Friday the 13th book that I read, Bloodbath. Both of these books have the exact same premise. A group of teens are asked to renovate Camp Blood by a businessman. Then this book takes an interesting turn by introducing the idea of one of the characters having a mental illness. You know, Sally has bipolar disorder, and this isn't supposed to be some kind of witch hunt idea for people with bipolar disorder. It's not saying that every person that has bipolar is a psychopath. It's just suggesting the idea of what if that were the case, because everybody's different, you know. And I think that's what makes it interesting, is that you have this character with bipolar disorder who has a history of being in accidents with people. You know, she was in an accident with her boyfriend and he died while she survived. Turns out that was just purely coincidental. She's not a psychopath. She didn't kill anyone. Jason Voorhees really did exist, but the idea of Jason being a hallucination of hers and the fact that she was actually killing people is interesting. I thought that was an interesting way to go. And then, so they make you think that that's the twist, but then the real twist is that she's not hallucinating and that Jason Voorhees really is real. Like, throughout the book, you, the reader, are even... like, you begin to believe that maybe Jason isn't actually real. So I think they do a really good job of tricking the reader into thinking that he's a hallucination until the reveal at the end, when he really is real, he really is going around killing people. The worst part about this book is definitely the characters. It reeks of the era that it released in, it reeks of 2007, all of these characters just throwing homophobic slurs. Like, it didn't age very well in that way. None of the characters are likable. I know that's common for Friday the 13th, but that doesn't mean that you have to do it. Just because it's a Friday the 13th book doesn't mean you have to make all of the characters unlikable assholes who hate each other, call each other slurs, and at one point even are revealed to be on crystal meth. There's nothing wrong with making characters likable and compelling, even in a horror book, and I think that's something that filmmakers and writers have finally realized in this day and age. It's more common now for horror movies to have much deeper characters who are much more relatable and likable. I feel like Scream was the franchise to really popularize that, to have a cast of characters that was actually likable instead of making everybody assholes and suck. They started that trend of the characters being relatable and likable, and that bled over into other franchises. But yeah, this really suffers from being stuck in that other era of horror movies where it was the complete opposite. The Freddy versus Jason era. A major highlight of this book, I believe, is how unpredictable it is. You are introduced to a lot of characters who you think are gonna be the surviving characters. Like, going into the book, you think that Mike is going to be the final guy. Like, he's probably gonna die, but he would be the last one, right? But then he ends up being the third character to die in the book, which was crazy. I did not see that coming. He was definitely a red herring final protagonist. And you have that happen throughout the book. You never know who's gonna be the last guy. Going into it, there was no expectancy that Rico was gonna be the final person to die in the book within those flashbacks. Going into it, I thought maybe it was gonna be Brian, maybe it was gonna be Ryan. I never thought it would be Rico, because Rico is so unlikable that you would expect that he would have died moderately early into the book. The kills in this book were all really fun. I liked a lot of the gore, it was pretty good. Still didn't go as far as some of the other books. I think it was still pretty tame compared to Bloodbath and the Friday the 13th special. Those books were a lot more gory in comparison. But I will say the last couple of issues definitely upped the gore by a large amount. I don't know if that's because of reviews. I don't know if people were reading those early issues and said the book isn't gory enough, and so they upped the gore in the later issues. But there's definitely a difference between issues 4 and issue 2 in terms of gore. If I had one final criticism for this book, it would probably be the flashback slash flash forward idea. I don't think it was utilized enough. We go for a long period of time in the book where we have no flash forwards. The book starts off with a flash forward, the sheriff talking to Sally, and then we just forget about that right up until the last couple of issues. I think they should have added a couple more of those throughout the book. It's very easy to forget that Sally is even in the hospital in the present because we don't talk about it until the 5th issue. We don't really get to know the sheriff at all. I don't even know if he had a last name. If he did, I forgot about it. He was a fun character until he died. He was basically just there to die. Would have been nice to get to know him a little bit better. Honestly, the series could have been longer without feeling like it was dragging. You know, you could have lengthened it out by an issue or two by adding some more flash forwards into it of the sheriff questioning Sally, maybe having a couple of other characters be involved in those flash forwards as well, like the doctors and the nurses, especially the ones that were killed. It would have been cool if we got to see those nurses in the book a little bit more before it was revealed that they were killed at the end, just so that those deaths would have been more meaningful. Even just knowing their names would have been enough to make their deaths more impactful. In the end, if you're a big fan of Friday the 13th and seeing teenagers get sliced up by Jason Voorhees and don't really care about unlikable characters, things like that, you'll probably love this book. But if you're not a fan of the early to mid 2000s horror movie tropes where the characters are all assholes and they all talk about sex and drugs and are incredibly homophobic and saying all slurs and stuff like that, then definitely avoid this book because you're not going to have a good time reading it. I didn't have a good time reading it. I enjoyed parts of it, but there were large amounts of it, like that stuff, that I didn't enjoy. But it's still better, I think, than some of the other Friday the 13th books that I did read. Like, I'd still rank this series higher than everything else because of Sally's story and the bipolar stuff and all that, because that's interesting. It's an interesting take on the franchise, and I'm always welcoming that. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Next week, we are going to be talking about the next Friday the 13th comic, which is Pamela's Tale, which is the origin story of Pamela Voorhees and how she gave birth to Jason. So really interested in seeing that because it's something that hasn't been established at all in the movies. They've barely ever gotten into Jason and Pamela's relationship. We've never seen them as just mother and son before the events of the movies. So it'd be interesting to see that play out. See who Jason's father is. I'm sure they're going to do the stereotypical trope of how he was an abusive dude. But it'd be interesting if they didn't do that. I guess we'll find out. Hope you have a good week, and I'll see you next week for that. Have a good one.